Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Kobe. I'm a country manager at the U.S. Trade and Development Agency. It is with great pleasure that I introduce USTDA's Acting Director, Vinay Thumalapali, who will provide some opening remarks for today's event. Ambassador Thumalapali comes to USTDA with a wealth of experience, including over 30 years of experience in the private sector. He has served as U.S. Ambassador to Belize and as the U.S. Executive Director of Select USA. Ambassador Thumalapali, over to you.
Thank you, Anna. On behalf of the U.S. government, I'm pleased to welcome you to the final event at the U.S. Center at COP26. My name is Vinay Thumalapali, and I'm honored to serve as the Acting Director of the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, also known as USTDA. As we all know, the Biden-Harris administration has elevated climate change as a core tenet of its foreign policy. The United States is committed to tackling the climate crisis at home and abroad, and agencies like USTDA have been tasked by the President to work in emerging markets around the world to help our partners adapt to and manage the impacts of climate change. USTDA is the US government's overseas project preparation agency, and our role is unique. We provide grant-based funding for activities such as feasibility studies, technical assistance, and pilot projects in order to structure bankable deals for climate-smart infrastructure that can be financed, implemented, and sustained. And we work alongside US industry to ensure that our partners have access to the best solutions for their sustainable and resilient infrastructure needs. As we have demonstrated over the past 2 weeks, the United States is taking a whole of government approach to deploy the full suite of solutions to assist our emerging economy partners in building back better and realizing green growth. That's why USTDA was proud to join the Net Zero World Initiative, which was launched last week by President Biden. Special Envoy for Climate Change, John Kerry, and Energy Secretary, Granholm. Under this initiative, USTDA will join forces with our US government partners to accelerate energy sector decarbonization around the world through new investments in climate-smart technologies. Through our project preparation assistance, USTDA will help our partners to increase the speed and scale of their transition to net zero energy systems. Over the past week, we saw evidence of this with respect to Romania. Last Tuesday, US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, and Romanian President Klaus Iohannis announced Romania's intent to build a first-of-a-kind US small modular reactor plant using technology from the US firm called NewScale. This outcome is based on USTDA-funded study that identified suitable sites and technology options for the plant. As you can see, USTDA is engaged on a number of fronts, and we are pleased that COP26 has provided an opportunity to highlight our work to address climate change. In particular, we would like to feature some of the existing activities under our Global Partnership for Climate Smart Infrastructure, which President Biden launched at the Leaders Summit on Climate in April of this year. At USTDA, we recognize that infrastructure investments last for decades. As a result, it is critically important to plan and build infrastructure projects today that promote long-term decarbonization and resilience to climate change. USTDA has committed $60 million in programming through the year 2023 to tackle the global climate crisis, while supporting good paying US jobs at home. In this past year alone, USTDA's activities have been designed to introduce more than $5 billion in clean technologies into emerging markets globally. At USTDA, we put into practice what we truly believe, that the best way to meet our partners' infrastructure goals is through collaboration. That's why we brought together 9 US industry associations and government partners under our Global Climate Partnership. Together, we are helping our overseas partners meet their climate infrastructure goals utilizing the latest clean energy technologies. In pursuit of this goal, it gives me great pleasure to announce our newest US industry partners under the partnership. They are the Nuclear Energy Institute and the US Nuclear Industry Council. Together, we will facilitate the deployment of the latest civil nuclear energy technologies to help our partners achieve the net zero energy sector goals. Caribbean small and less populous island economies, also abbreviated SALPIE, SALPIE initiative. Around the world, USTDA provides solutions that are specific to the goals of our partners set. This is particularly true in the context of small island countries, including the Caribbean, where the effects of climate change are most evident in damage caused by natural disasters, and where resilience on imported diesel creates both environmental and economic challenges. USTDA is proud of its role in finding innovative solutions to address these needs. Under the Biden administration's Small and Less Populous Island Economies, SALPIE initiative, USTDA is funding project preparation assistance to help our Caribbean partners meet their energy security and infrastructure resiliency requirements. US companies and organizations such as Earthspark International and RMI, Rocky Mountain Institute, we have them here today, are providing technologies and services that can help solve these problems. Together, we are addressing these issues on multiple fronts, whether it's assistance to deploy microgrid technologies and renewable energy systems, or procurement training to obtain the best value for public infrastructure. Given the importance of USTDA's programming in this region, we wanted to mark the occasion first with a signing ceremony with a valued partner from the Dominican Republic. After the ceremony, we will move straight into a panel discussion focused on the opportunities and challenges island nations face when it comes to climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Thumalapali, for those remarks. I am now pleased to commence the signing ceremony today between the Superintendencia de Electricidad, or CA, of the Dominican Republic and USTDA. We are honored to have the Superintendent, Rafael Velasco, here today representing CA. Rafael Velasco is the Superintendent of Electricity and also serves as a founding member of the Board of Directors for the Committee for Central America and the Caribbean of the Regional Energy Integration Commission. He came into this role as superintendent with 2 decades of experience in the energy sector. We are honored to be commemorating this important collaboration between USTDA and CA at today's event. To commence the signing ceremony, I'd like to invite Ambassador Thumalapali to kick off the ceremony with some opening remarks, after which we will hear from the superintendent.
On behalf of USTDA, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Rafael Velasco. It is a pleasure to meet you, sir. I also want to thank Eric Wolf, Regional Senior Commercial Officer, and your team in Santo Domingo for your tremendous support of USTDA's program in the Caribbean region. We truly value the embassy's support for our program. USTDA is honored to sign this memorialization of USTDA CIE cooperation here at COP26 to advance the deployment of energy storage solutions in the Dominican Republic. I can't think of a better platform to commemorate this important partnership between our 2 countries. These types of collaborations are precisely what COP26 is all about. Nations coming together around one common goal, which is to take action to address climate change. Dominican Republic and many small island economies are feeling the most severe impacts from our global carbon footprint. The Caribbean is wrapping up its peak hurricane season now, which serves as a perennial reminder of the detrimental impacts of climate change. It is our collective responsibility to reduce our carbon footprints across the globe by paving the way for a green energy future through building resilient infrastructure. As you likely heard, President Biden has encouraged us to build back better, both here at home and abroad. I believe this aspiration applies not only to infrastructure, but also to our partnerships, including our strong partnership with the Dominican Republic and other island economies. When President Biden announced our global partnership for climate smart infrastructure, he said that nations that work together to invest in cleaner economy will reap rewards for their citizens. He also referred to USTDA's work as creating the sort of partnerships that are going to be good for all of us. This is so very true of what USTDA does around the globe and with our partners and neighbors in the Caribbean in particular. Our partnerships are good for all of us. Our assistance will help create an enabling environment for battery storage solutions in the Dominican Republic. This technology, which US companies are eager to supply, will help keep the country's power grid stable as more renewable energy sources come online. And it will create a more energy independent and resilient Dominican Republic while strengthening its economy and the environment. This project reflects our common vision and shared priorities, and we trust it will serve as a model for small island economies around the world. At USTDA, we're optimistic about our continued partnership with the Dominican Republic and our ability to tackle climate change together. After we have completed the signing to commemorate our partnership, it'll be our honor to host a panel discussion on how we can work together to support the deployment of critical energy, clean energy technologies in island economies, such as the Caribbean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Thumalapali. Superintendent Velasco, I'd like to turn it over to you to offer your remarks.
Bueno, muchas gracias tanto a la USTDA como al señor embajador, también a Anne por toda tu colaboración a través de estos últimos meses, e igualmente a Eric Wolf, aquí en República Dominicana, miembro de la misión de la Embajada Norteamericana en el país. Para nosotros es un honor realmente, además de una gran suerte que nuestro país haya podido ser signatario y sujeto a este tipo de colaboración, sobre todo, como muy bien señalaba el señor embajador momentos antes, ser una isla, el ser un país insular, estamos más expuestos obviamente a los cambios climáticos. También entra dentro del orden del actual gobierno el presidente Luis Abinader, nuestra administración al frente de la Superintendencia de Electricidad, que es el regulador del sector eléctrico en el país, y ayuda definitivamente con este acuerdo de subvención a llegar a la meta de un 30% de capacidad renovable, capacidad instalada de origen renovable. Actualmente estamos en torno al 11%, pero obviamente para una isla como nosotros además esto ayuda a poder solidificar lo que es nuestra independencia energética, que a largo plazo es algo que siendo sujeto de huracanes y sobre todo de eventos climatológicos, la independencia energética es algo para nosotros de fuente de vida, digamos, en algunas ocasiones, en que lo hemos visto en casos extremos. Que sea almacenamiento de energía es una gran fortuna porque precisamente la regulación dominicana está en este instante en un proceso de actualización y modernización en donde el almacenamiento de energía en baterías no formaba parte de la normativa. Y con el estudio que este acuerdo de subvención está patrocinando, podremos hacer un trabajo mucho más eficaz y además poder hacer una labor más asertiva en cuanto a qué conviene en aspecto normativo para el almacenamiento de energía en baterías, que sirve no solo para poder aprovechar mejor las renovables, sino para otros sinnúmero como pueden ser los servicios auxiliares de las redes, la transmisión, incluso el tema de frecuencia de las líneas muy radiales, que con baterías en países como nosotros, que tenemos en algunas ocasiones líneas muy radiales y muy sujetas a los vaivenes del tiempo, con almacenamiento de batería podemos hacer islas de energía a nivel del unifilar, y esto va definitivamente a mejorar el nivel de vida de cada uno de los dominicanos que habitamos en esta isla del Caribe. Así que muchísimas gracias a la USTDA, muchas gracias señor embajador, gracias al gobierno del presidente Biden, con quien tuvimos la oportunidad de conocer hace varios años siendo vicepresidente. Visitó nuestro país cuando era vicepresidente del presidente Obama, e hizo una serie de visitas precisamente con la agenda renovable, visitando algunos proyectos de energía solar sobre todo. Así que gracias nuevamente y cedo la palabra a Ann para continuar con el evento. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Velasco, for your remarks. I'd now like to invite you and Ambassador Thumalapali to please sign the memorialization document to commemorate this cooperation between CA and USTDA. Wonderful. Thank you both so much. We're really excited, and thank you for your participation in today's ceremony. We look forward to advancing this important project and to USTDA's continued partnership with the Dominican Republic. We will now transition to the panel discussion on climate smart infrastructure, building back better and catalyzing green growth, which will be led by USTDA's Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean, Nathan Young. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Anna. And so now we're going to dive into today's panel discussion on climate smart infrastructure, building back better and catalyzing green growth. So I would like to offer a warm welcome to our distinguished panelists. So joining us for this conversation are Superintendent Rafael Velasco, whom you just met, from the Dominican Republic's electricity regulator, the Superintendencia de Electricidad. And I'm also very pleased to welcome Ms. Alison Archambault, President of Earthspark International, and Dr. Caitlin Bunker, Director of the Islands Energy Program at Rocky Mountain Institute. So thank you all for joining our panel. So one thing that the discussions of the past few days has illustrated is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution to the climate resiliency, clean energy infrastructure, regulatory, financing, and structuring needs of emerging economies, and smaller island economies have particularly unique challenges in this regard. When you further layer on the dynamics of scale and affordability and weather events, to name just a few issues. So that's why I'm particularly looking forward to getting the perspective of today's distinguished panelists in order to provide further food for thought and inspire further innovative approaches to these challenges. I would therefore like to start our panel discussion with Superintendent Velasco. So Mr. Superintendent, the nations of the Caribbean are among those that are most affected by climate change. Also, they have traditionally had to rely on importing most of their energy, particularly relying on fossil fuels. What measures is the Dominican Republic undertaking to create greater grid resiliency using cleaner energy resources?
Muchas gracias y gracias por la oportunidad de participar en este panel. La verdad me siento muy honrado y muy a gusto que sea con el patrocinio también de la USTDA. Particularmente en el caso de la República Dominicana, desde hace ya unos 14, 15 años, hemos estado dando algunos pasos. Primero de carácter normativo a nivel de la ley. En el año 2007 se creó la ley 5707, que es la de incentivo a las energías renovables, en donde se le daban exenciones arancelarias y de impuestos a las energías renovables, pero además en el orden de mérito del despacho de las mismas dentro de la generación se le da prioridad, como todavía al día de hoy lo es. O sea, mientras estén disponibles hay que despacharla. El caso nuestro quizás, aún siendo una isla caribeña, tenemos un parque generador bastante diversificado cuando se compara con otras. Obviamente carecemos de combustibles fósiles como carbón, como petróleo, y nuestros ríos también no son muy caudalosos ni muy largos, a diferencia de los países continentales que se le puede sacar agua en diferentes puntos del cauce. Sí, no obstante, el avance que ha habido, sobre todo en los últimos 7 u 8 años, en energía solar y energía eólica, ha sido significativo. Mencionaba de que hoy día tenemos un 11% entre energía solar y energía eólica, un 1% en biomasa, y el agua, lastimosamente, instalado un 12%, quizás la energía asociada a la misma es menos. Ahora, con esa ley se abrió la puerta para que la inversión tanto privada como internacional, privada local como internacional, empezase a invertir en el sector. Concomitantemente con esto, en el año 2012 se creó la Ley de Estrategia Nacional para el Desarrollo, que es la Ley 1-12, en donde a raíz de la misma, el compromiso mayor era firmar un pacto de todo el sector eléctrico, en donde se promoviese aún más y se abriesen las puertas aún más para que la energía renovable estuviese presente. Hoy día, aparte de esa capacidad instalada, tenemos hablando concretamente, de un pico de 3.100 megavatios que tiene el sistema eléctrico interconectado. Ya tenemos unos 700 megavatios de energía renovable instalada y esperamos que entren unos 500 megavatios más durante el 2022. Por lo tanto, estamos hablando fácilmente de unos 1.300 megavatios posiblemente dentro de los próximos 12 meses que logremos alcanzar. Es evidente que esa capacidad instalada por la disponibilidad de las renovables no significa que son 1.400 disponibles 24/7, porque algunas, obviamente, tanto el sol como el viento tienen una disponibilidad más limitada que otros, pero creemos que es el momento en donde estamos viviendo un boom de la energía renovable, sobre todo la solar, que en nuestro país es abundante y que por la baja en los costes de producción de los paneles, quizás ha sido en los últimos 4 años el mayor progreso que hemos podido evidenciar. Finalmente, nosotros somos signatarios también de la Acción Climática de las Américas. El país también fue parte de la COP26 este año y fue parte del Acuerdo Climático en 2015 en París, donde como nación asumimos los retos, entre los que está evidentemente poder alcanzar un 30%. Al menos un 30% de capacidad instalada de origen renovable.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent.
Very welcome.
Ms. Archambault, welcome. Earthspark's been doing some very interesting work in the Caribbean and elsewhere. Could you please share with us Earthspark's experience in supporting energy resilience in emergency economies such as Haiti?
Yes, thank you, Nathan. Earthspark International is a nonprofit organization building, incubating, and spinning off business models and research that can solve energy poverty. And we focus on what can work in rural Haiti, but we build best practices that are relevant around the world. We've been working in Haiti since 2009. And in 2012, we turned on the first prepay microgrid in Haiti for a town that was far from the national grid. In 2015, we turned on what is behind me, the first town-sized solar-powered smart grid in rural Haiti. And in 2015, that same year, we also released a USTDA funded national microgrid market assessment for the country. And what we did there was proving what was possible by turning on the first one, saying, yes, we can power a town with solar power, solar-powered smart grids. And also, what is the data? The data at the time was non-existent for what towns would be good candidates. And so that proof of what could happen and also that data translated into a fundamental shift in the way that people thought about what was possible in Haiti. The World Bank cited our report 13 times in its justification for investing millions of dollars into the microgrid sector in Haiti. Like I said, we build businesses, and I wanted to call out, the ambassador mentioned that infrastructure should be decarbonized. Well, yes, clean, efficient, and smart. And back in 29, when we were kicking around trying to figure out what to build, we knew that we needed smart meters, low cost, high functionality smart meters to make the business model sustainable. It would be insufficient to have just smart meters. We need other ingredients too, but we needed at least smart meters. And at the time, nobody thought that was relevant to the sector. So we ended up, after asking many companies to get involved, doing it ourselves, and we spun out a company called Spark Meter. That company is now the global leader in metering and billing for microgrid utilities. They're in 25 countries around the world and getting into actual larger distribution utilities as well. Earthspark is now working on scaling up our microgrids. We have 2. We're working on the next 22. And we've spun off a company called Energipop to focus on microgrid operations in Haiti. So it takes an ecosystem of enterprises to push this ball forward. And of course, electricity by itself is useless. It's what people do with electricity and how they do it that really matters, that changes people's lives. And so we work with people to use electricity efficiently and productively in their homes and businesses. And the way the process happens matters too. That's why we work closely with a lot of stakeholders on local energy governance, and actually also on something we call feminist electrification. So it's simply making sure that women and men are meaningfully involved in each aspect of what we do in microgrid development.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Dr. Bunker, thank you for joining us as well. And RMI has likewise been carrying out some fascinating work in clean energy development. So could you please fill us in on your grid resiliency work and the measures that you think would be most impactful for accelerating island economies toward meeting their climate and energy targets?
Sure. Thank you, Nathan, for the question. Resilience has certainly become a central part of RMI's work because it has become a top priority of our partners. So we are also a nonprofit organization. We are working to transform the global energy system to secure a clean, prosperous, zero carbon future for all. And I co-lead our Islands Energy Program. We are focused on accelerating the clean energy transition in the Caribbean region specifically. And we partner with utilities, governments, and regulators to do this work. So when we think about and work on resilience, we think about that first in the energy planning phase. So we supported some of the first energy planning processes in the Caribbean region that put resilience at the center. These were following the impacts of Hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017. So in the British Virgin Islands and the Turks and Caicos Islands, leaders and stakeholders there took the opportunity to plan for the future of their energy sector with resilience at the center of that. These processes now are often called IRRPs, so adding a second R for resilience to the traditional integrated resource planning process. And so RMI is fortunate to be able to support that type of planning with energy and resilience intertwined in the process. And we also support the implementation of projects that enhance resilience. So things like renewable energy resources and energy storage located at the most critical infrastructure. And in both this planning and project work, we think about resilience at different levels. So at the broad, the whole system level, we want to design and build a more resilient electricity system by considering things like where resources are located, both to avoid areas that have known hazard risks and to create a much more distributed system than today's centralized model. We also look at opportunities like using as many local resources as possible, using a diverse set of electricity generation resources rather than relying on just one, and building in flexibility and adaptability where possible. So that's sort of the system level view where we're thinking about resilience. And at the same time, we have to think about the project or the asset level as well, because a new project can only contribute to a more resilient electricity system if the project is resilient itself. So as an example, for solar PV specifically, RMI has published a series of reports called Solar Under Storm. These focus on best practices to design and build solar PV projects to be resilient to Category 5 hurricanes. So we think about the specific project, the asset itself, and how to ensure that it is resilient as possible while contributing to the resilience of the broader electricity system. And so in doing all this work, what we're really seeing is that islands are demonstrating leadership in advancing their energy transitions. And they're finding success really by layering together multiple benefits. So by using clean local resources in a more distributed system, this absolutely moves islands faster towards their climate targets. It increases resilience of the electricity system, provides lower cost electricity, boosts local economic development, and lots of other benefits. So each island may have different priorities for their electricity system. And what we're seeing is that it's possible to optimize for and meet those different priorities by considering resilience within the energy planning process and within each new project that is built, so that we have a system that's overall resilient, along with specific projects and assets being resilient themselves. Caribbean islands are leading on this pathway now and really demonstrating what's possible and how to get there.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Bunker. Mr. Superintendent, looking at the USTDA technical assistance, that will support CA's plans to create enabling regulations to deploy battery storage to the Dominican Republic. How important do you expect the deployment of battery storage to be toward growth in renewable generation in the coming years?
Sí, bueno, en nuestro caso es realmente fundamental. Este es un estudio que nos va a ayudar no solamente a poder establecer una normativa actualizada, sino también el hecho de que el almacenamiento de energía en baterías inteligentes, que es precisamente el estudio que USTDA nos está colaborando y subvencionando, va a poder hacer no solamente en el tema renovable, sino también en temas como transmisión, el poder hacer más sostenible la transmisión, porque hoy en día, y va un poco con la resiliencia también, hay muchas subestaciones donde vamos a poder estudiar el poner bancos de baterías inteligentes que puedan almacenar energía para hacer primero generación distribuida cuando se necesite, pero también en el caso de algún tipo de eventualidad climatológica o fortuita, esas subestaciones pueden administrarse con generación propia y no salen de la red, con lo cual podemos garantizar también una mejor disponibilidad. En cuanto a concretamente el caso de las baterías, también para la generación renovable, nosotros, como decía hace un ratito, en el caso dominicano, aún siendo una isla del Caribe, bueno, una media isla del Caribe en el caso nuestro, sí tenemos una generación diversificada porque contamos con más o menos un 37% de la generación descansa en gas natural, que aunque es una fuente de energía fósil, se considera de transición en aras a una generación renovable. Aún tenemos obviamente HFO, pero también lastimosamente aún tenemos carbón, y es una parte importante del caso dominicano. Sin embargo, concretamente las baterías nos va a ayudar a hacer un uso mucho mayor de la renovable, porque en el caso solar solamente estamos usufructuando las horas diurnas, y por lo caro que ha sido históricamente el tema del almacenamiento en baterías, ahora tenemos la oportunidad no solo de almacenar baterías, sino también de regular frecuencia. Y me explico. La generación solar, la misma generación eólica, pero la solar sobre todo, genera algún nivel de inestabilidad a la red por la naturaleza de esa energía. Pero cuando tengamos almacenamiento en batería de proyectos puntuales, al menos un 20% de su capacidad nominal podrá estar o deberá estar en batería, de manera tal que cuando haya una salida introspectiva de este parque generador, pues no se vaya a cero y no contribuya así a desestabilizar la red. Por último, también, aunque nuestro país está electrificado, digamos, en un 97% de su población, no necesariamente eso ha significado históricamente calidad de servicio. Hay muchas zonas que están interconectadas con problemas de calidad de servicio muy serios. La actual administración ha podido entregar una disponibilidad en torno al 98%, pero no es algo sostenible en el tiempo si no se hacen las mejoras del lugar. Y con almacenamiento de energía podemos, en sistemas aislados o sistemas que están lejos de la red, el poder tener fuentes de energía generada con renovable, almacenada en baterías y que pueda prolongar los servicios en esas zonas de la isla.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Archambault, what innovative structuring has Earthspark developed to help smaller economies and rural communities to implement smaller scale microgrid infrastructure?
Well, there's design on the system level. So again, clean, efficient, and smart, making sure that we are building systems that are cost effective and quick to deploy. We are actually transitioning to 100% solar plus storage. The grid behind me is about 96% solar with diesel backup. And what we found is that for the marginal few percentage points of kilowatt hours of the total energy, it's actually extremely expensive and the most difficult energy that we deliver. So all of our future grids will be 100% renewable. We're also looking at this integrated resource planning, including cooking. So the electrification of cooking here is a little bit of a game changer as we think about what loads could be included in what the microgrid design process would include. And obviously that would then deliver enormous health and climate benefits on top of just the normal benefits of electrification. And then I want to thank Caitlin and RMI for their solar under storm. We used that in designing some of our racking systems for our second grid. Resilience is obviously key, and resilience both at the microgrid level, but also within the microgrid. We were just hit by an earthquake, unfortunately. Our grid did well, but it was a real reminder that within the microgrid, it's also essential to make sure that we have solar plus storage paired at the telco sites, at the health clinics, to make sure that if worst case scenario happens and some of our lines come down or we experience some damage to our main generation system, we're still able to deliver extremely resilient, reliable power to those critical services, which in remote communities can be very, very, very important. That's at the project level. At the aggregated project level, we're looking at blended finance, and that's really how we see unlocking scale up. So we've spent more than 10 years building 2 microgrids. That is not the path to scale unless it is foundational for the future. And so we now have 22 provisionally approved concessions for the next microgrids in Haiti. And we're bringing together blended finance. Again, we are a nonprofit, but we launch companies, and we've launched a project development company called Participant Power that is pulling in Green Climate Fund support. So very concessionary debt, sub-debt. We're getting connection incentives from the World Bank and the government of Haiti. We're piecing together all these different parts of financing to pull together even some very concessionary social investment capital for equity side to make the puzzle something that is not just grants, which are slow and difficult, but we're de-risking by doing, and hopefully this is de-risking this portfolio. This blended finance will be less in need of subsidy than the next. So aggregating these projects in a way that is difficult because each project is actually its own little project, but pulling them together in a block is what we see is necessary to get any sort of scale moving forward. And we're very excited about the coming year where we're launching that path.
That's a great approach. Thank you. Dr. Bunker, are there particular breakthrough technologies or structuring tools that you think will be essential for reaching the kinds of goals that we've been talking about?
Yes, Thank you for the question. In terms of technology, I really want to agree with everything that Superintendent Velasco offered around energy storage. I think this will be key, and it is starting to be key today. We're seeing islands using energy storage to more efficiently operate their diesel generators and save fuel and money even before moving to a higher penetration of renewable energy. Of course, storage will allow for that greater uptake of renewable options and boost resilience. And the structure we're likely to see is much more distributed renewable energy with storage sited at the most critical infrastructure, as we've been discussing a bit today, in terms of hospitals, schools, water treatment, telecommunications, really being strategic about where these resources are located, utilizing the renewable option plus storage to contribute to an integrated grid, interconnected grid most of the time, and be able to keep the power on to that most critical need during an extended outage of the grid. In terms of structure, the other theme I'd like to offer is equity as an underlying theme. So as the Caribbean is leading on clean energy transition, they're also well positioned to lead on weaving equity into this transition and ensuring that the process is as inclusive as possible and results in equitable impacts for all who use the energy system. So RMI has just published a new report this week that highlights this opportunity for the Caribbean to be energy equity leaders and offers a framework for considering equity within the energy transition. I'd invite everyone to check out the report. Of course, it's called Ensuring an Equitable Energy Transition. And some examples of the actionable recommendations that are included there are recommendations for how to establish equitable structures and processes, to seek and integrate the voices of communities, to effectively collect and utilize a wide array of data, to design targeted programs and policies based on the unique needs of communities, and to develop financial mechanisms that help unlock credit for low-income communities. So again, through our work, we really see Caribbean islands leading today in terms of energy transition overall, and in terms of including both resilience and equity within the energy sector work that they're doing, I think is a big opportunity that we'll see more of coming up.
Great, thank you. Can people just Google that title and they'll come up with the report?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, perfect, thank you. So I want to ask one more, just same question for everyone, which is what advice do you have for international firms seeking to pursue clean energy opportunities in the region? And for that, I'd like to start with the superintendent.
Muchas gracias, y una muy importante pregunta. En el caso nuestro, primeramente el Estado de Derecho y las garantías tanto jurídicas como incluso comerciales para la hora de instalarse, sobre todo en energías renovables. Segundo, en el caso nuestro particularmente, quizá como producto del rebote económico, pero también de una tendencia que ya venía, tenemos una economía que está creciendo este año al 12.1%. Eso ha traído como consecuencia un incremento de la demanda notable y que está siendo suplida gran parte del incremento con muchas renovables, porque ya energía térmica de origen fósil había suficiente capacidad instalada. Así que lo que estamos viendo afortunadamente es un movimiento hacia la energía renovable que va a ser despachada primero por lista de mérito por dos razones. Primero, porque hay que despacharla cuando el recurso esté disponible, en este caso el sol o el viento. Y segundo, porque son, incluso respetando la lista de mérito, en el caso nuestro tenemos un sistema energético marginalista que despacha la más barata primero, la segunda más barata. En estricto rigor tienen costo variable cero, o sea que también van en la base, porque ni el sol tiene costes ni tampoco lo tiene el viento, por lo tanto son costos variables cero. Yo diría que quizá este año y el que viene, por los próximos 24 o 30 meses, es el momento idóneo para el caso de la República Dominicana, por la matriz de generación y por el boom de la demanda que estamos evidenciando. Creo que también es un mercado moderado, quizás para el caso de Centroamérica, pero comparado con el Caribe somos 11 millones de habitantes, tenemos un pico de 3.134 megas, que en algunas islas no se alcanza por razones naturales. Por lo tanto, veo que hay una combinación de factores que pueden ser atractivos para tanto multilaterales como inversionistas privados tomar la iniciativa de invertir en Dominicana en energías renovables y convencional, pero preferiríamos que fuesen energías renovables, de ser posible.
Entendido. Muchísimas gracias. And so, Ms. Archambault, I'd like to ask you the same question. What advice would you have for international firms seeking to pursue clean energy opportunities in the region?
So I like to tease my clean tech counterparts working on clean energy in the States that I face a lot of challenges working in rural Haiti, but in many ways I have the easy job because the status quo is darkness and there's no incumbent utility, an incumbent set of interests to unseat or technologies to change. We get to pull in today's best technologies, best business practices, and build the best grids possible from scratch. And that is incredibly exciting and a big opportunity. In terms of partners on the ground, that's the advice, like partner with the doers and partner with the utilities. And we as a nonprofit has this big belief in proving what is possible. It's incredibly important to get that first project done. This system works. People cannot say that solar energy cannot power a town because this one does. And then the other is de-risking by doing. You gotta push forward and do the work. You can't write about what probably would happen. You have to do it to get the bruises and know where the problems are going to be, so then you can solve for those. And then you can move microgrids towards market. You can sort of mainstream the technologies. But the partnering with the communities, partnering with the doers, and investing in the upfront push to sort of open things up and make the market mainstream is a lot of work, but it's also huge potential and huge rewards.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Bunker, I'd like your thoughts on this question as well, please.
Sure. Happy to build on the responses, which I agree with for sure. I would offer the technologies that are proven and cost effective in other regions are also the ones to focus on here. Solar, wind, battery storage, for example. However, I think it's very important to not assume that these technologies can be implemented in the same ways that they are in other regions. Each island in the Caribbean is unique. They have their own priorities and perspectives. Certainly, there's opportunities to learn from one another, aggregate, and share information. But starting from an assumption that what works for one island will work for another is not likely to lead to the best solutions. So as an example, most islands are limited in terms of physical space. For some, that might mean integrating energy and agriculture together. So Barbados, St. Eustatius are great examples of solar PV and agriculture projects coming together. For other islands, that might mean integrating clean energy into the built environment, like the solar parking canopy at the National Stadium in the Bahamas. So it's really important to understand the priorities and the circumstances of the region and of individual islands and build from there to implement clean energy opportunities.
All right, that's wonderful. And I think it's great observations to conclude our program on. So Mr. Superintendent, Ms. Archambault, Dr. Bunker, you've given us great food for thought and to increase our awareness of the possible approaches for engagement in the region. So I'd like to very much thank you for your insight and for the fascinating conversation. And so look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Thank you very much for participating in this afternoon's, in today's panel. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Gracias, muchas gracias. Gracias a ustedes. Muy amables.
Thank you all.